Hey everyone, it's Friday here on the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Brian Batko. We're going to look at the NFL getting flag football to the Olympics. Also, we got to look at Aaron Rodgers. Will he finally show up before OTAs, or will the Steelers continue waiting on into minicamp? Also, George Pickens with his new team, all here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Let's get into it. You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter. Hello and welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. And as always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as the daily content that comes out from all of our writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As always, this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Not only will they help you when you're injured in an accident, they'll also help you fight for your workers' compensation rights. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR today for Edgar Snyder Associates. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Brian, the NFL got the word that the Olympics, they're allowing NFL players to compete in the Olympics within the flag football event that's going on. That's going to happen in the 2028 Olympics. The rule, though, is that one NFL player can only compete for one country. So that seems like a crazy thing. It makes me wonder who's going to be the U.S. representative. What players go international? Are players just paid by countries to come help them win? But certainly, it's an interesting start to how flag football is going to go at this international stage.
Wouldn't you need like citizenship or something, just like any other sport? Or
I hope so. I think that would make a lot of sense, unless it's just like, unless the Olympics are like, look, we're willing to forgo that because we need some of these NFL players to even the odds out here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly interested in it, but I mean, hey, I guess if it's a form of football where incredible football players can make some amazing plays and do it with the inherent, I guess, thrill of countries competing, then maybe some people will check it out. Maybe I'll check it out, but this wasn't really something I was clamoring for. And to be honest, I don't think I'll be following it super closely as we have the lead up to it. So
yeah, well, that's fine. But you know what you're going to follow closely? You're going to follow closely an all-time Steelers flag football team, because that's what we're going to do on this segment. Now, this is just for funsies. It's the off season, not a whole lot going on, but the positions and how flag football works, it is a 5-on-5 game. So Brian Batko are going to go back and forth here, and I are going to go back and forth here. You have a center who is eligible to catch, basically is like a tight end who just snaps the ball and can protect the quarterback. You have 3 wide receivers / backs. They can be a wide receiver or running back, your choice, and then you have a quarterback. That's your offense. Your defense, you have a rusher, which is basically like a pass rusher of any sort, linebacker, D-line, you choose. You have 2 cornerbacks or defensive backs, as they're called, and then you have 2 safeties. So basically, you're looking at a pass rusher, you're looking at a center, then you're basically going corners, safeties, and wide receivers or running backs, and then you have your quarterback. So with that being said, let's pick an all-time Steelers flag football team.
I've done the minimal amount of research on this just by like watching some of the current U.S. representing flag football players who, like, you wouldn't know any of their names. They probably played in high school or maybe even college, but
maybe.
I think the dude who's like the best player for the U.S. is like a 5'5" quarterback. So who's just slippery and obviously can get the ball downfield. But yeah, like I said, I haven't really been a big flag football watcher. And I guess that's the other thing about this, Chris. This isn't until 2028. So we've got 3 more. Like, it's kind of funny to me that people are throwing out, Tyreek Hill wants to do it, Justin Jefferson wants to do it. I'm like, 3 years from now, they could easily change their mind. Anything could happen with their NFL status. So, but hey, it's in the news right now. So let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm going to give you first pick.
Okay.
Pick whatever position you want. Let's build this roster out. But you and I are going to work together to build the same roster. So you can start offense or defense. So we can go from there.
I think you got to start with your quarterback. There's not much difference between flag football and real football that way. So I want to build around a QB, and the way that it works, you can't just take off and run. You just have to try to avoid the pass rusher guy. And I think there are like if you get like a handoff back from someone, then you can run if you're the quarterback. But otherwise, you need, I think, escapability, accuracy, and probably some arm strength and reading coverages, I guess. I'm going to go with Justin Fields, mainly for the escapability factor.
In the all-time Steelers flag football team, sir?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. Do you think they've had a faster player at quarterback than Justin Fields ever?
They don't need speed. They just need escapability, like you said.
Well, a lot of these guys that they've had, such as Ben Roethlisberger, his skill was escaping the physical portion of the game. Yeah, not someone trying to grab his flag. I did also consider, I think, you know what? Russell Wilson in his prime would definitely be up there. But I guess I'm thinking more of the players when they were with the Steelers. So Russ was past his prime. Mike Vick was past his prime at that point. But that's my
2001 Cordell Stewart there. But you made the pick.
Okay, that's a good call.
But you made the pick. Justin Fields is our quarterback. We'll live with that right now.
Is Cordell accurate enough for?
That's a good question. Would he be accurate enough? I don't know. And that could be the interesting part there. Now there'd be less traffic for him to have to worry about when it comes to reading defenses. But either way, Justin Fields, Cordell Stewart, everyone's like, what's up with Ben Roethlisberger? Look, you're looking for guys that are going to be able to dodge they protect their flags, and you can't stiff arm people in flag football. It's just that's against the rules. All right, I'll go with wide receiver. I got to start Santonio Brown. That guy will be a demon as a threat at wide receiver at any form of football that you put him in. So that's an easy pick there. What's your next pick?
I'm going to go with another receiver, and it's someone who I think his shortcomings or his weaknesses dealt a lot more with the physical portion of playing the position. But in a flag football league where it's all about some circus catches and making people miss, being slippery, give me Diontae Johnson.
Ooh, I like that. As a route runner, that makes a lot of sense. And you can't be as fit. You're not physical in flag football. That makes a lot of sense. I'll finish out wide receiver here. I'll go Santonio Holmes. Add him in there. His ability to get open and also his crazy playmaker ability. That's a pretty nasty trio of wide receivers. What's your next pick here?
Well, I'm still going to pick a receiver as the guy who flips the ball to our quarterback because that's really all they have to do. So I'm giving us another pass catcher downfield. And I'm going to go with someone we're going to talk about later in the show, but George Pickens.
You're going George Pickens at center. That
doesn't have to block anybody. He just flips the ball, and then I'll say run down the field, George, and Justin Fields is going to put the ball somewhere in your vicinity, and you're probably going to come down with it over whoever's covering you.
Oh, there you have it. George Pickens, Antonio Brown, Diontae Johnson, and Santonio Holmes, and along with Justin Fields. That's your Steelers flag football offense. Let's flip to the defense here. All right, I'm going right.
I have no idea of any flag football strategies, so
I don't know either.
I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here, but I feel like it never hurts to have George Pickens as a pass catcher for any offense in any version of football.
Let's flip the defense. I'll pick the first cornerback. I'm going to go Rod Woodson. Guy was just a freakish athlete, superstar. That's another guy just like any form of football. He will be good at it. Put him at the cornerback position over the safety position. And you could even flex him around if you wanted to get fancy with flag football. I don't know if they do that. But there you go. I got Rod Woodson. Who's your next pick?
I'm sure they are probably doing some sophisticated things coverage-wise because, I mean, there's only so many ways that you can defend an end zone against oncoming pass catchers. So I'm going to go with someone who he might even be our guy who like runs at the quarterback at full speed and tries to get his flag. But Mike Hilton, with his short area quickness and his agility and his instincts, I think he could be good at this.
Okay.
I've watched the Steelers do a drill that sort of simulates flag football a lot in training camp. And that's where they have to kind of stay within like probably about 5 to 10 yard little area. So it's basically like in a phone booth. It's kind of like an Oklahoma drill without the tackling, but they just have to two-hand tag each other to win that rep. And I feel like Mike Hilton never lost. So
yeah, that was his thing. Yeah, basically like they worked on pursuit angles. I think it was. All right.
Yeah, it's like the angles, and obviously if you're an offensive guy with the ball in your hand, you're trying to make the defensive guy miss in a very narrow portion of the field. And yeah, it's usually fun to watch if you're ever out there at the trip.
All right, I'll go with my next pick. I'm going back to cornerback. I'm getting the other great cornerback in the Steelers' history. That's Mel Blount. I don't care if he was in the 70s. Mel Blount. You know what? Flag football is just going to have a hard time dealing with this man just beating up wide receivers all over the field. But I'm gonna put him and Rod Woodson. To me, if you would struggle to find any cornerback pair in any other franchise's history that you could put together and say it's better than those two. So I think that's a great place to be.
Hey man, it's a non-contact sport. All right, we don't need Mel Blount's aggression out there. But yes, if you ever see any highlights,
It's
obviously
criminal element.
they're jostling for the ball just like you would, well, almost like you would in the NFL. I'm gonna go with another guy who I think range, instincts, sure-handedness as a tackler, which should translate to grabbing a flag. Minkah Fitzpatrick. He might be the guy, might be the center fielder behind the cornerbacks that we've drafted to our team thus far.
Well, if you took Minkah Fitzpatrick, that leaves me with there's only one other player that can play safety in the Steelers secondary, and his name is Troy Polamalu. So there you have it, an all-time Steelers flag football team consisting of Justin Fields, George Pickens, Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes, Diontae Johnson, Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, Mike Hilton, Troy Polamalu, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I wonder how good that team would do against other NFL teams. But let's talk about some real
We have
things.
any flag football experts? Let us know.
Let us know, because there's someone probably like, no, that's not how the rules work. Mike Hilton wouldn't work there. But please let us know. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about something that is happening, and that's the Aaron Rodgers situation. So Aaron Rodgers hasn't reported yet. We'll talk about do we expect him to report, and what happens if he doesn't report before OTAs? Report, sign, anything. But point being, are we going to see anything happen before OTAs? And if not, what does that lead to next? We'll discuss that next here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, I want to remind you the show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. When you've been hurt on the job, who decides when you're better? Who decides when your treatment's over? And who decides when your benefits are over? The answer might surprise you. It's the insurance company's doctors. If that doesn't make you feel great, it shouldn't, because they're not going to be on your side. You know who is going to be on your side? It's Edgar Snyder Associates. Call them today at 1-800-94-EDGAR, because they'll fight for the workers' compensation rights that you deserve. That's Edgar Snyder Associates at 1-800-94-EDGAR. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, Aaron Rodgers is apparently on Joe Rogan this week in his podcast. He was seen at a concert over the past weekend. You know, I understand that he might be going through some personal things. That's what he said on the Pat McAfee show or whatever. But he certainly seems to be enjoying some time, the time where, time before he's supposed to join the Steelers, if he does join the Steelers. But OTAs start next week, next Tuesday, in fact. Do you should anyone expect him to show up for that at all for the 2 weeks of OTAs the Steelers have before mandatory minicamp? And if he doesn't show, Brian, when does he show?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Or I guess $10 million question, if that is Rodgers' stated salary desire. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say this is the final countdown, because that, I guess, would be if it's the week before training camp and there's still no clarity. But this is sort of the initial phase of which you've had a lot of people kind of saying, like, I shouldn't say a lot. The portion of people in Steeler Nation who are pro Aaron Rodgers signing, or at least don't mind it, are kind of like, he's not holding up anything right now. There's nothing going on football wise. He's taking his time. Sure, maybe it's annoying to you or you're getting impatient, but it's not actually affecting anything on the field for next season. Well, once you start missing OTAs, which I understand are voluntary, but now you are missing an opportunity that could work toward helping this team be better and the product be better and the offense be better. So that, to me, is why this is a little bit of an inflection point with this whole saga. And hey, yeah, maybe he will make up his mind over the weekend or Monday, and he'll fly here on the PJ at whatever non-main airport that he came in for his visit, and he'll pull up in his Chevy Malibu rented, and he'll be out there in number 8 on Tuesday morning. But obviously, you know, everything you hear is leading you to believe that it's going to happen eventually, but when, that's what we just don't know.
I think that's the thing. I'm still on the side that it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
We've heard, supposedly his author said on the author of the book that's being written about Aaron Rodgers is going to be, he said that you could expect him to come before the end of the month or before mini camp.
I think
Maybe
the logic
that's
to that is he knows full well at age 41, this many years in the league, how beneficial that can be. But there's a difference between knowing and caring at this juncture of your career.
And that's what I wonder what's going on. Now, again, he says there's something personal going on. I'll respect that space and say, like, hey, you know what? Maybe he does got something going on. But man, like Garrett Wilson I remember him talking about, like, hey, we need this guy in here because we need to get things going, and we haven't had a chance to really establish a rapport. The Steelers offense could use some of that. I feel like that was a big reason why they got Aaron Rodgers, was for him to set up a rapport in the Steelers offense. But that hasn't happened yet, and he hasn't showed up, and now the Steelers are still waiting. And again, I know the Steelers probably they said, like, hey, if Mason's our guy, Mason's our guy. Like, they'll work with what they got. But at the same time, like, I do feel like if Aaron Rodgers is serious about playing, he should be showing up soon, just to get acclimated with a whole team and a whole system and a whole roster that you don't know. And so, we'll see if that happens before OTAs. And if it doesn't, every day that he's not there, I guarantee you, we're probably going to ask Mike Tomlin, where is he? Is he coming? Is this just not going to happen?
And let's be honest, the other players, whether they play for the Steelers or they're just observers of the league, I mean, when you start not showing up to stuff like this, yes, you're going to get that reputation for, okay, this guy just doesn't even care at this point. He's half in on football, and that's where his mind is at. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the perception. And as far as guys on this team, Chris, I mean, they're not mindless drones who just, they're cool with anything the Steelers do. Yay, whatever the organization says is best is the best thing for us. They'll say that publicly, most of them. But the bigger the profile of the player, the bigger the opinions are going to be, or the more opinions there are going to be from guys who have established thoughts or preconceived notions about Rodgers. I'm sure it was the same way last year with Russ. I mean, in their heart of hearts, I'm sure there was a bunch of guys who were like, really? We're signing Russ? This guy's washed. Whereas, there's, and on the flip side, I'm sure there are also guys who are like, I can't wait to play with Russ. This is going to be awesome. He's going to be the best quarterback that we've had. And there's probably differing opinions like that on Rodgers too, within the organization and within the locker room. That's just called being a human being and having differences of opinions. But for anyone who is sort of on the fence about it, or, not exactly an Aaron Rodgers fan, I don't think this would be helping any of those guys come around at all.
And that's the thing. Yeah, you're not winning over any teammates. He needs to be showing up and being serious, because this team wants to win. They're bringing him in to try to get them to take a step forward, or at least be part of a step forward. And
that's a good way to put it. You're not winning anybody over by getting this way. There might be a lot of guys who don't really care and just like, hey, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's been there, done that. He's won a ring. Like, he can show up whenever. It's no big deal. But that might not be the case for all 89 other guys.
Yeah, and I do wonder how long, the longer it goes, how many more of those 89 guys start to be like, you know what, I'm over this. Let's just move on. We know and we like Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. Plus, it's just the inherent, like, man, this is OTA, this is voluntary, this is optional, but I'm here working. Like,
yep.
Of course, you're looking around, and like, if it's one thing if it's Cam Hayward or TJ Watt, they've got kids, they've got a family, they're entrenched here as captains and leaders, and even that, you like, deep down, if you drank truth serum, you're like, well, of course I wish this guy were here. I wish everybody was here. If I'm here, that's human nature in any walk of life or any job. You want everybody to kind of be going through the same thing, but it is optional. That those guys have done a lot already for the organization. Aaron Rodgers has done nothing for the Steelers organization to this point. So while I say the guy's got the right to, go through this however he wants to and deal with it however he wants to, that doesn't mean the Steelers or any other franchise owe him anything.
No, I'm right with you there. I think it continues to be a bizarre situation. We'll see if it does get resolved before OTAs. If it doesn't, we'll be talking about it during OTAs. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about what George Pickens said, a few interesting things that he said in his presser now that he's with the Cowboys, and reflecting that upon the Steelers wide receiver situation and how they're building it moving forward. All here on the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, I want to remind you this episode is also brought to you by UFC Gym Pittsburgh. Looking for a way to challenge your body and sharpen your mind? Step into something more than just a workout. Welcome to the brand new Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy at UFC Gym. Here, it's not just about training, it's about living the values of honor, discipline, and respect. Whether you're a total beginner or leveling up your skills, you'll be guided through a structured program led by a third-degree black belt instructor who builds confidence, strength, flexibility, and real technique. Head down to the UFC Gym Pittsburgh at the Waterfront or in Market Square to learn about the exclusive 3-month introductory package today at UFC Gym Pittsburgh. Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, we flip to this. Now, I know George Pickens isn't a Steeler anymore, but, he had some comments the other day that was kind of interesting. He kind of pushed back on the narrative that he crashes out a lot or that he blows things out of proportion. He says, quote, "I'm a chill guy, and I just love to work." And he's trying to rebrand there. He also said that he feels it's super refreshing with the Cowboys with being with a different culture. Now, I don't think that was really. I think he was just kind of just acknowledging like, hey, things are different here. We're kind of being different. But this now goes back to the point that the Steelers have now traded away several wide receivers over the years, and George Pickens, if he turns out to be really good for the Cowboys, he will break a trend of the Steelers knowing when exactly to trade away a guy at the right time. Diontae Johnson's been on 3 teams since they've traded him away. Antonio Brown, spazzed out when they traded him away. Chase Claypool couldn't last the season with the Bears when they traded him away. Martavis Bryant, played like a couple games before getting suspended for the rest of his career. So like they have been pretty good at predicting the right time to dump guys. But I think it's also I'm wondering like, hey, what does this have? What is this? What do the Steelers need to change so that they can retain guys, or is it more so just focusing on bringing in guys that don't have these red flags like George Pickens did when he was coming out of college?
Yeah. I mean, I watched the whole George Pickens interview, Chris. It was like 5 minutes long with their media. And I mean, was he forthright? No. Did he take accountability for anything that happened with the Steelers? No. I guess the kids call it gaslighting these days when you say, I'm just a chill guy. And there's this, false image of me that like, George, come on. We all saw it. It was in 4K, dude. Like all of your antics and theatrics, like we can't just pretend those never happened.
Right.
But I don't think he took shots at the Steelers.
I didn't think that was either.
Like, I mean, he might feel that way behind closed doors, but I don't think you can fairly take that from that little press conference. And I mean, loyal listeners and readers know, like, I've criticized George a lot. I think George is one of the more immature players in the NFL that I've ever come across, but I don't think that he used that as a platform the other day to throw shade at the Steelers or Mike Tomlin or the culture. I don't think there was a ton of depth to his answer on that. I think when he meant a refreshing and a rejuvenating situation, that's stuff that every player says when they go to a new team. The Steelers said they needed a fresh start when they traded George Pickens. Like those are just platitudes. And when he talks about it being a whole different culture, I think he meant like it's warmer in Dallas and there's people wearing cowboy hats and like there's more barbecue. I'm serious. Like if you watch the whole thing,
I know it's just funny.
And now I'm ranting. I feel like I'm ranting and I don't want to be on my soapbox, but this all also, Chris, comes back to this viral clip culture on social media that we live in, where some random person snips a 45-second thing of George's interview and cuts it off right after he says, I love the culture or whatever. It's a new culture here. Like he basically goes on to say, like, they're different cities. Dallas is bigger, but no one watches the full thing. Nobody bothers to spend time getting the full context. And this happens all the time. And there are times where players are like, yeah, you took my words out of context, when that's BS. They're just covering their own butt. But more and more in today's X and aggregators and that, like, whole world, I mean, I just would challenge people, like, don't just, if you do see a minute long clip or even a 30-second long clip and you're like, wow, that was interesting, I'm going to go run and tweet about this. Like, maybe just try to find the whole thing and see if there's more to it. Sometimes there won't be, sometimes there will be. And at least you can come at it from more of a less disingenuous place, honestly.
I think that's a great way to approach it, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, because people look at it and say, oh, he's dissing the Steelers. It's like, no, I think he's just talking about what's difference between the cities.
This is George Pickens we're talking about. He was never the most insightful or introspective interview on the team. Now, like, the difference to me would be Najee Harris. Like, his comments on the Steelers when he went to the Chargers, that I think was more calculated. And when you did watch the full thing in context there, like, he had some nice things to say about Mike Tomlin and the franchise too. But I mean, he is somebody who's thoughtful, considerate, knows what he's saying, and sometimes has no filter, which can get him in trouble. But I think the stuff with George, don't get it twisted and think he was, like, bashing the Steelers locker room culture or the Steeler way or commitment to winning or anything like that. He was just in a new city talking for 5 minutes.
I'm right with you there. We try to cool the jets here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette
when needed. I mean, we just try to,
when needed.
Yeah, be honest and in good faith when we look at these things. So, like, what I would quibble with is, like, you know, again, George is acting like nothing bad ever happened with him in Pittsburgh and that he got a bad rap for no reason. It's like, come on, you know, whatever. The Cowboys media and fans, they're eating it up though. So good for everyone there. Best of luck to all involved.
Yeah, best of luck. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that goes in an offense with an established quarterback like Dak Prescott and in an offense where there's a clear number one wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. How will George Pickens handle that? How will the Steelers handle it without George Pickens? We'll continue to cover all those angles here on the North Shore Drive podcast and the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko, thanks again for tuning into the North Shore Drive podcast. As always, you can find this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those episodes, as well as daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Back here Monday with more on the North Shore Drive podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.